Hi, I'm Tom Zompakos. Welcome to the Story Every Thursday podcast. It's my day off, so I'm going to do this episode pretty quickly and then go for a swim. If you saw the previous episodes, one of the last things you saw was my friend Juan on crutches because he got injured in the last scene of a short film that he and I had been working on. A little update on how he's doing. He's back near his own house in Miami, had a quick medical checkup. They discovered he will need surgery, but not for the injury that he got just now, but for an old one that did not heal properly. So at some point that problem had to be discovered, and it's a sort of better sooner than later situation, as I understand it. So if any good came out of that unfortunate slip and fall that gave him a chipped bone on his foot, discovering that problem before it became bigger is probably one of them. He is editing the film, for which I'm very grateful, because I know good editing when I see it. I can't do it. I probably could if I really practiced, but there's so many things I have to practice and work on all the time to add doing all the starts and stops perfectly. I mean, good film editing, you feel it when you see it, and you know it when you see it. And it requires a strong sense of rhythm, which I have when playing, a guitar to a metronome or a drum to a metronome or something like that. But not in the way that editing's done, where you need to understand what the rhythm will be if you do these painstaking start and stops at these exact frames. But Juan, he actually has a great love of finding the perfect frame at which to stop and start to generate that kind of satisfying flow of a really good piece of film. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does there. And since it's easier to compliment him when he's not here than when he is here, I have to thank him because he worked harder than I did on this movie and put in some long late hours doing all kinds of things. Could go pro with the script breakdown and props lists and location lists and everything it takes to even get a simple as possible script like this accomplished. So thanks again to Juan, and to anyone who wondered what happened to him, thank you for your well wishes and prayers. I can pass those on to him. I can and will pass those on to him as soon as possible. All right. What else should we talk about? I decided to kick back and watch something new to see how it was, because the trailer for it looked really good. What I watched was the show Black Rabbit on Netflix, which stars Jude Law and Jason Bateman. And Jude Law they're brothers in the show, and Jude Law plays a seemingly successful restaurant owner in New York City, and Jason Bateman plays a gambling addict who owes money to the mob. There's some things the show did really well, and some things that didn't quite land. The dynamic of their brotherhood was a bit uneven. Sometimes you looked at them and thought, these guys aren't really brothers because of how they interacted. And then other times they really sold it. So there's one scene I'm thinking of where they really sold it, where in order to get like a quick $500, which is nothing compared to the hundreds of thousands that Jason Bateman's character owes, he actually sells these bright red shoes that he's had. And so he's in the scene talking to Jude Law's character, Shoeless. And Jude Law laughs at the story of Jason Bateman selling his red shoes on the bus. And Jason Bateman goes, "Hey, I'm doing my part, giggles. I'm chipping away at it." And the other thing that was a realistic brotherhood dynamic, or one that I felt when I was watching it, was when they kind of have this habit throughout the show of saying like this long tirades of completely unforgivable things, which are then forgotten about, and they're laughing together next scene. So, that was kind of real. I like to think that I can really feel when a screenwriter or the author of a book is portraying a human dynamic. I like to think I can feel whether or not they've lived it. And it doesn't matter if they have or haven't, depending on their talent, but there are certain times when something just feels very real or doesn't. So they did some good work there for sure. And the show obviously had a lot of hard work put into it. I mean, they got top tier talent like Jude Law, who's given a long list of performances that you can't look away from, very, very magnetic. And then I've only seen Jason Bateman in two things, but he always plays, no, not always. In the two things that I've seen him, Ozark and this, he plays a guy who looks like a completely organized type A guy, or speaks like a completely organized type A guy, but is actually, deep in debt to criminals and is doing all these scammy con things. They gave him long hair and a beard this time, which it just kind of looks weird on him. It just and it's not it's just hard to buy him as such a lowlife for some reason. I mean, he's a really good actor, but it was hard to buy him as a lowlife for reasons I couldn't figure out, whether that was in the writing or in his performance. I thought he lacked I thought they were going for this thing where he has kind of a low-life deadbeat charisma, which you might have seen, you might know people like that in real life, the gambling addict or the cokehead who everybody in their life is really rooting for them and everybody likes them for kind of unidentifiable reasons. But they didn't quite give him that charisma that a lot of people like that have. They didn't make him particularly convincing on that level. If you want to see a character who does have a lot of very realistic low-life charisma, someone like Jesse Pinkman in Breaking Bad is a perfect example. Everybody I know who likes the show finds him completely sympathetic, or he's usually like a fan favorite, even though that show was made some years back now. But it's just kind of like if you needed a comparison. What else? I thought the Russian mobsters, there were three of them in the show, and I thought the younger two, they do all these things. They're completely not intimidating. I don't know what went wrong, whether the casting was wrong, the performance was wrong, or the writing was wrong. I have no idea. They go so far as to, this is a small spoiler, but who cares? I mean, you probably will see this in the trailer or in the early episodes anyway, so it doesn't matter. They go so far as to cut off Jason Bateman's fingers while they are pursuing him for money, and even that doesn't make them particularly intimidating. How weird is that you don't feel worried when they're on screen, or you don't feel scared of them? There's no shortage of intimidating performances out there that you could compare that to, but it didn't land. I can't figure out why. And one of the younger mobsters, supposed to be sort of the fail son of the boss, who they did something I hadn't seen before. They made him mute, and he speaks entirely through sign language, and then one of his henchmen speaks out loud. I thought that was very, very clever. I thought it was a really, really good way to take sort of a type that we've seen in a lot of movies, like the Russian mobster, and do something new with it, which is, I think, something worth shooting for when you're writing characters. I have no idea why the younger mobsters who are pursuing Jason Bateman the whole time are just unable to be intimidating. But I mean, they do the worst things, and it's like you don't really. I did not feel much when they were on screen and harassing him. I don't think that's the actor's fault. I think there's some sort of unidentifiable artistic choice there that didn't land. But it was really interesting to see. It was a good piece of work overall. It did not give way to one of the classic failings of TV and movies, which is to be so committed to wish fulfillment that people do not pay for the things they've done wrong. This is a problem with newer movies and TV shows, because there used to be either codes or a social structure that required consequences for actions, but a lot of that got gotten rid of, and a lot of that was left behind culturally, and for a while you could find plenty of movies where bad people just got away with things, or they were the main character. It's weird, or they were sympathetic for reasons that, we were supposed to root for them, but you didn't feel it, things like that. So that was interesting that they did make people pay for things by the end of the show. So there was a lot of good writing and a lot of good acting, and it definitely pulled me through. I believe the 8 episodes total that they made of this. And based on the ending, which I will not spoil, it's hard to believe there will be another season unless they would have to completely reinvent the characters and the stories for that to be true. So not perfect, but very good. Okay, one more thing to talk about before I wrap this episode up. I was gifted this book 3 years ago now. Sat on my shelf as books will do. Other things got bumped ahead of it in the reading list. This is The End of Vandalism by Mr. Tom Drury. I gotta say, this is fantastic. Really, it's just surprising and funny in every sentence. It's some of the best deadpan humor writing you will find, and in a completely original way, because there's a lot of writing out there that's supposed to poke fun at small town America, but maybe it comes off with the sense that it doesn't really know, but there's sort of cliche ways of going about it, things like people who eat too much McDonald's or too fat or too this or too that. This kind of thing is filled with other characters, like the sheriff there's a sheriff who's being helped by a private pilot, and he notes in his mind that private pilots, people who fly Cessnas and crop dusters and things, once you're up in the air with them, they always want you to take the wheel. They always want you to try being a pilot. Oh wow, a beautiful, beautiful hawk just flew by. That was awesome. That's my second hawk of the day. There was one in the neighbor's yard this morning, and that was kind of cool because he was sitting on the ground, and this one was in the middle of a majestic flight. Anyway, back to The End of Vandalism. And so the sheriff is getting airsick while this enthusiastic private pilot is saying, "No, anyone can do this. Here, constantly scan the ground, look for safe places to land in an emergency." And then the sheriff is doing his best not to think about the possibility of emergencies in this tiny, tiny, rattling little plane. It's filled with people who are making private jokes within their own mind, which I think could not be replicated in a movie. There's a woman and a man asks her, "Do you think I still have a chance with, Charisse?" or something like that. And she feels so unable to answer that in her head she says, "He might as well ask a magic 8-ball." And then she says out loud, "There is always a chance," which I think is one of the answers on a magic 8-ball. So characters are like filled with small observations and funny jokes that make sense in their own head, but only they know why they're saying them. I thought that was remarkably lifelike and like a great sense of humor on the writer's part. And there's all sorts of funny misunderstandings in it. There's a woman who wants to be a stage actress, and she gets cast as a pregnant woman, so they put a fake big stomach, a padded stomach on her. And she is doing research in method acting, and she learns that pregnant women often become forgetful. And so she decides to act as though she decides to act forgetful, but gets misunderstood as someone who can't remember her lines, and then gets dismissed from the role. And, the scenes of the book are filled with kind of like people sort of wondering how things could have gone. She digs the padded stomach out of her attic and walks around in it at night and is kind of, practicing acting again, things like that. There's a lot of silly people. I mean, I feel like the sense of humor is so constant that it's almost every sentence. There's a couple who gets married, and the cheapskate character slips them $5 to start them on their way, things like that. They are an older couple that gets married, so to treat them like people who are just getting started in life when they're already established and sort of did things a bit out of order in that sense. The idea that, people in their late 30s who already have careers need $5 is kind of, again, it's like, I don't think I'm explaining that one well, but there is a lot of deadpan humor and character interactions that don't quite fit together, people being misunderstood, and that's what is being, that's the source of humor in the book. The cruel way to do small town humor is to say, let's get together and laugh at how trashy these people are. I don't like books like that. I don't like movies like that. I don't like that attitude. But this very deadpan thing full of people who have like private thoughts and dreams in their head that kind of come out and saying things that don't quite fit the situation or are only a joke to them. I mean, that's a lot of fun. And I am really impressed with the author's ability to get things like that out there in almost every sentence. And I don't think I've done an adequate job of examples, but I do think you'd really enjoy this book if you gave it a try. So I'm not even finished with it yet. That's exactly how far along I am, that yellow tab. But End of Vandalism by Tom Drury is worth a read if you need something good. A lot of fun. Okay, I think that's it. Release date on the short film is still early October. That's the dream, and I think we can do it. And after that, obviously, I'm not going to keep a secret of how you can watch it. But it's a little overcast now, which will make us swim a little bit nicer, you know, a little less sunburn. So I'm going to get on with that. Thanks for listening. Keep an eye out on what's going on, and I'll check in with you next week. Bye.